we're going to go over two main strategies that you can use to alter your self-talk as an athlete. One involves managing thoughts in the moment, and the other involves reframing how you naturally think, knowing the beliefs that this will create. So we're going to start with altering your thoughts in the moment. Imagine you're getting ready to start a game and you realize you can't stop thinking about how good the other team is. Do you think those types of thoughts are helpful? Probably not. More than likely, they will lead to feelings of doubt and possibly intimidation. Or let's say you just made a mistake and you notice a stream of terrible thoughts rush through your head, criticizing and beating yourself up over what just happened. Is that a helpful way of thinking that will get you refocused on the next play? Definitely not. Understanding the negative impact of unhelpful thoughts, the main goal whenever you realize you're thinking in a negative way is to change your thinking. But you first need to be able to realize and notice. Now, why do you think those two words are so important, realize and notice? Well, think about it like this. If you aren't able to realize that you're speaking negatively to yourself in the moment or notice hurtful thoughts in the moment, what are the chances that you'll be able to change the way you're thinking? Naturally, the negative self-talk may go away, but not likely as fast as you'd like or you need at that moment. That's why being able to realize and notice when you're experiencing negative self-talk is so important. And this is known as self-awareness, the ability to recognize and understand your own thoughts, feelings, and actions. With self-talk, self-awareness helps you recognize what kinds of thoughts you're having, and then also the way that these thoughts are impacting how you feel and especially how you play. Going back to the example I gave earlier, self-awareness gives you the ability to realize that you're thinking too much about the other team and that those thoughts that you're having are leading to feelings of doubt and intimidation. It also helps you quickly notice negative thoughts following a mistake and how those thoughts are distracting you and lowering your chances of playing well moving forward. So really, the first step to alter your thoughts in the moment is recognizing negative self-talk in the first place. Without this recognition, you're probably not going to make much change. Once self-awareness is present and you're able to recognize negative self-talk, then you want to apply a technique known as substitution. So this is the principle of substitution. The truth is, you can't force a thought out of your head by thinking about it. So if you can't force a negative thought out of your head by thinking and telling yourself not to think about the other team or that you shouldn't be doubting yourself, what can you do? Well, that's where the principle of substitution comes into play. While you can't force a thought out of your head by thinking about it, you can gently push it aside by beginning to think about something else. As your attention becomes more and more fixed on the new thought, the old negative thought will just naturally fade away. If you don't want to think negatively anymore, your best bet is to think something that's more positive or productive. For example, if you are experiencing negative indirect self-talk, such as thinking about how good the other team is, you could substitute those thoughts for thoughts about yourself and your team. Begin thinking about, all your strengths and how good your team is. This will take your attention off your opponent and place it onto yourself. If your negative self-talk happens after a mistake, for example, and you're beating yourself up, you can substitute those thoughts with more productive thoughts, right? While you may not want to think that it was a great play if you did honestly make a mistake, you can think about how you can learn from the mistake and what you can do moving forward and what adjustment you can make for the next play. The idea of substitution is to recognize negative self-talk as present and then replace those thoughts with more positive and productive thoughts. Something that becomes even easier the more naturally you speak positively and productively to yourself. And that takes us into altering your natural thought patterns. Have you ever noticed that there are certain thoughts you have that are repetitive, ones that just kind of honestly seem automatic? After a mistake, do you think the same thoughts each time? How about before a game? Do you find yourself having similar thoughts as the game is getting ready to start? Each of us have certain patterns of thinking, habits that have formed over time. Now, these thought patterns involve thoughts that spring out of your subconscious mind automatically. If you pay attention to other people, along with yourself, it's easy to notice that these patterns of thinking and speaking are present. The reason that these patterns of thinking are so important is because they are automatic. Now, we just talked about a reactionary approach you can take to negative self-talk. Altering your natural thought patterns is more of a proactive approach. Since we know that thoughts become habitual, we want to make sure that the natural thoughts you have that are automatic, they're going to be more positive and productive instead of negative and hurtful. That way, you don't have to be so reactive in trying to substitute those negative thoughts and the negative self-talk, since you will have less and less of it in the first place. Now, altering your natural thought patterns takes time. It's not something that you will have changed tomorrow or even by next week, or honestly, probably by next month. That's why it's important to first have a strategy in place, like the one we just went over, to manage negative self-talk in the short term. But as you are applying such a strategy, you need to also be sure you are working to alter your natural thought patterns. And so this is where we're going to work on changing the way that you think. To change the way you naturally think, there is one word you must keep in mind: repetition. Whether it was something that you are aware of or not, the current thought patterns that you have formed due to repetition. It could have been as simple as, you hearing your coach say something negative, or you heard someone else say something negative, and then that seed was planted in your mind for the negative thought. Over time, you water that seed unknowingly by thinking that negative thought over and over again. And then as the seed sprouts and grows roots, more negative thoughts form. It branches out into different statements, all stemming from the original seed and all adding to the natural thought patterns that are present. Another way of thinking about your habitual thoughts is like programming a computer. If you program a computer with a faulty software, the computer won't work as efficiently as it should. In fact, it may not even work at all. In that case, what would you need to do? You would need to reprogram the computer with a better program or software. That's exactly what you need to do to alter your natural thought patterns. Now, back to the word repetition. How do you think our minds are programmed? Well, think about studying for a spelling test when you were in school. What did you do to help yourself remember, so program your brain to know, how to spell the words? Did you repeat them over and over again? Then did you have someone test you on them once more using repetition to ingrain the word in memory? You see how it was the repetition of the word that helped you remember it, to the point where when the teacher said the word in class, automatically you knew how to spell it? In a similar way, you are going to reprogram your mind to naturally and automatically think more positively and productively. To do so, you want to follow this simple strategy. List out all the negative thoughts and beliefs that you have about yourself. Then you want to create more positive alternatives for each statement. Then rewrite each statement and reread it back to yourself at least once a day. When altering the way that you naturally think, you must focus on reprogramming more positive and productive self-talk, trusting that by doing so, the negative thought patterns will fade away. Now, if you're interested in learning more about self-talk as an athlete, I have a series that goes into detail on what self-talk is and the different ways that you can use self-talk in sports. So go ahead and click on that series to learn more. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.